Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN, presented by Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney hanging out with you on this Wednesday. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. We have a lot to get to on this show. We've been talking golf over the past couple weeks every single Wednesday. We got our guy Alex Blickle from FTN, also the co-host of Fade the Narrative, which you can catch this evening. We are going to talk Waste Management Open. He's got some picks for us. We're going to talk a little DFS. I'm going to selfishly ask him who I should pick in my Survivor PGA pool. We're going to talk a lot of golf on this show. He is hanging by here in the next segment, and he hit last week Tom Hoagie at 60-1, so he's coming in pretty hot. We also have Joe Pisapia of FantasyPros. You guys are well aware of Joe Pisapia, one of my favorite dudes in the industry. He's also the man behind the Fantasy Black Book series. We are going to talk, of course, the Super Bowl 56, just a couple of days away. Bengals and Rams, you know this by now, but we'll just get Joe's thoughts on who he's leaning, who he thinks is going to win. I got to ask him like an MVP. Maybe we have some fun with some specialty props, and we probably will talk a little MLB as well. Always got to pick Joe's brain when it comes to Major League Baseball across other sports as well. He's all over the place, Pisapia. I mean, you can catch him on Sports Grid. In This Ring is a wrestling podcast that he hosts, and he's done it for years. It's not for me. I can't even tell you three wrestlers. I know one, the Eric Young. It's really all that really matters, right? We'll get into some NHL and some NBA picks as well. 6 games on the hard court and 6 games on the ice. So a lot of action here on this show. We're going to tee up a couple shows. I see some people who are hanging out here for the first time on our FTN YouTube page. We appreciate you. If you could smash the like button, we appreciate you even more. You're watching on Game Plus. A great lineup, all in football a little bit later on tonight on Game Plus. I believe 8 Eastern for those north of the border. It's going to be Jake Seeley, of course, who hosts the show, myself, Jeff Ratcliffe, and Lauren Carpenter as well. We're going to talk a lot about the Super Bowl, give some picks, some props. So it's going to be a heavy Super Bowl show a little bit later on. But we always appreciate you guys heading on over to our FTN YouTube page, subscribing, and smashing the like button. If you have any questions, guys, at all, let me know. I see a newcomer in here, Ryan Carp G926. Masters, 55 days away. The countdown is on for the Masters. But before we get there, we have to talk about Waste Management Open. I don't know if you guys can see. I'm rocking this shirt. Here we go. Left, right. If lost, please return to the 16th hole. I mean, Blickle's a golfer. I got to ask him what he thinks about the noise. And it's just a different vibe in Phoenix for the tournament. I think some players love it. And I think some players think it sucks. Like, they don't want to be booed when they miss the green. When I was there, I saw people booing when they landed on the green. I mean, I wasn't one of them, but a tough crowd, right? I mean, if you don't stick it within 10 to 12 feet, you're getting booed. And if you're landing in the bunker, you're getting it as well. And I think if you ask some players, it kind of maybe tests their nerves or distractions that they could, just kind of block it out. But I heard Phil Mickelson, when I saw him, he landed in the bunker, and we recorded it and said, oh, this is going to be great. One of the best bunker players of all time. Well, wait till we see this shot. And he couldn't get out of the bunker. It's like, what did we just see? And then he talked after. He blamed the crowd noise and things like that. George says, Bubba booed just showing up. Yeah, absolutely. Bubba booed. But what was cool about Bubba, I've seen him. I mean, he takes the boos on hole 16, but he also, ran down the sides and was giving people high fives and stuff like that. I saw people throwing beers at the golfers on the green after they made a putt. Like, it does get it's a little carried away. Let's be honest. It does get a little carried away, but I got to ask Alex about that as well. Just off the top of my head here, and I meant to bring this up earlier. I'm glad I remembered it. Those who have an account over at Bet365, they're giving away free money. They're a plus 100 for over 0.5 points. We're going to see 1 point in the Super Bowl. We have to. It's not going to be a 0-0 tie. It's just not going to happen. So head on over to Bet365. Heck, make an account if you want. I don't know what the rules are with the bet being capped. I think most people can only bet 20. They're also giving away a free bet for that game as well. So you can take that free bet and place it and then maybe place another $20 bet. I've seen some people able to bet 80 on that total. But most people that I've talked to and, in my circle, 20 seems like the max. But hey, that's free money, right? You head on over to Bet365, you take the over on 0.5 points, and away you go. Yeah, Andrew Reed, 20 max, right? I was able to do 40. I see some people are able to do 80, but it does seem like the most is the 20 max here. So we're about 5 minutes into the show, and we got Alex hanging by. But first, I wanted to just do some 3 stars, a quickly rapid fire through the 3 stars of last night. Let's start on the ice, Tino, in the NHL. Some 3 stars for you. Patrick Laine, 2 goals, 3 points, and 5 shots. It's his 3rd straight game with at least 2 goals. He's having a nice bounce-back season. He's got 12 goals and 24 points in 25 games. Last season with Torch was not a great year for him, right? He played 45 games. He only had 10 goals and 21 points. So already here, he's got more goals and more points than last season in 20 fewer games. He's an RFA. I would imagine Columbus does what they can to lock this guy up, but I don't know if he's the type that wants to stay in Columbus. I mean, no shots fired at the organization, but we've seen a lot of players leave Columbus over the past few years. So it'll be interesting to see if he does get locked up, but a nice bounce-back campaign for the 3-time 30-goal scorer, 36 in his rookie season and 44 in his sophomore campaign. I don't know what it is about the Ottawa Senators. They're a bottom 5 team. They're competitive, but every single time I bet against them, they seem to win. They smoked Carolina last night. I know at the end of the day, you look at the box score as a 4-3 final, but they were up 4-0 in that game in the 3rd period. They almost blew it, but it was all Brady Tkachuk and the Senators for the most part. 2 goals, 7 shots, 3 hits. Tkachuk is a touch-em-all guy that we love on this show. And then we want to give a little bit of love to Laurent Brossoit as well. 28-save shutout for Vegas, a win over the Edmonton Oilers. The picks were bad yesterday, guys. I was on the Wild. That game was super strange. Minnesota got themselves in a lot of penalty trouble. It just felt like they wanted to overpower Winnipeg from a physical standpoint. Marcus Foligno, I don't know what his deal with is Adam Lowry. He fought him twice. He's going to get suspended. Like UFC moves on Lowry when he was on the ice. He's going to get suspended today. Brad Marchand is definitely getting suspended for the nonsense that he had with Tristan Jarry last night. But a shout out to Laurent Brossoit, who was pretty good, and Vegas, the second half of a back-to-back tonight. More on the Golden Knights in just a little bit. Also some love to a guy like Riley Smith and William Karlsson. Vegas needs to do something to activate Jack Eichel. They need to clear $5 million off the books to activate Eichel. Smith is on the last year of his deal. I think they got to keep Smith. You don't want to mess with the chemistry too much. That misfit line has been together since Vegas came into the NHL. William Karlsson, Riley Smith, and Jonathan Marchessault. They were great last night. I think they need them. They need that trio. I think it's easy to say Evgeny Dadonov is the guy to leave. He's got another year after this year at $5 million. We'll see if they could find a way to trade him and maybe have to trade a pick as well for a team to take on the salary. I'm looking at you, Montreal. You're a bloody mess. The Canadians are an absolute mess. I can't believe I was feeling them yesterday, but we did hit the over on Montreal. Something has to give with Montreal. These goalies are no good. Montembeault and Caden Primo, I know we try to be respectful as an analyst, but these guys are getting shelled every single night. 33 goals allowed in their last 5 games. Something has to give in Montreal. The season is lost. Either, fire the coach, Ducharme, pick up a veteran goalie. You're not going to ruin your draft capital. I mean, you're still going to get a top 3 pick, maybe at the top pick overall. Get completely sidetracked, but something has to happen in Montreal, and I think we'll see it soon. Whether it's Ducharme gone, Luke Richardson promoted as like the rest of the season coach, the team is not buying into Ducharme. It's an absolute disgrace, and you're going to ruin some of the mojo from some of the younger players. You just can't continue to have that happen night in and night out. That's all I want to say about that. NBA, we'll save. Tino, we'll save that for when you come on. We want to tee up an NBA show as well, and we'll talk 3 stars from last night in the association a little bit later on when Tino joins us, and we have 6 NBA picks. I'm fired up here today. Alex Blickle's in here next. We're going to talk Waste Management Open. Keep her locked. Watching Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney's, we bring in Alex Blickle of FTN, who is fresh off a nice little Mr. Hoagie outright win last week, sir. Congratulations. Heck of a pick by you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was a really exciting win just because it was sort of the direct result of this new analysis that I've been doing, incorporating Matt Jones, also at FTN, his volatility report, and just really focusing on volatility in conjunction with the course fit projections that I have.
I mean, a lot of great stuff. We touched on this last time you were on the show, but a lot of great content, a lot of great tools yourself. And you mentioned Jones and Brian DeCourty. I mean, we got a lot going on over at FTN. You're going to have Fade the Narrative this evening as well for people to check out. And what do you think of this? We got Hoagie Hero in here. Some comments in the channel. I love that. What do you make of the Waste Management Open? What do you make of like hole 16 and just people just full out just chirping and as a golfer yourself, what do you think? Like, put yourself in that situation. Are you for it? Are you against it? You want people just to shut the heck up? You love it. Okay.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. And this comes from someone like through high school, I played soccer, basketball, baseball. I didn't play golf for my high school. So I was always like the kind of guy who loved the adrenaline of big moments in games, whether basketball, soccer, whatever. And you don't really get that in golf, right? Like in golf, in the biggest moments, a lot of what you're trying to do is actually calm yourself down instead of pump yourself up and leaning into that adrenaline. And so it's such a cool thing to have the 16th hole where you see guys pumping up the crowd before they hit their shot. And I think like the only other thing that I can compare it to is a couple Ryder Cups where guys have pumped up the home crowd on the opening tee. Like Keegan Bradley did that years ago and talked about when he was, I think it was when he was paired with Phil Mickelson, and he hit it, and Mickelson was like, well, that was a perfect drive. Thank you. And Keegan's like, thanks. All I was trying to do was not whiff. I was so damn nervous. So it's just like, it's one of the most unique events and obviously one of the most unique holes. But I think it brings out a side of golf that you don't get anywhere else. And it's a side of golf that's more like other sports. And so that's really cool.
It certainly is unique. I've only been to two tournaments, professional tournaments, one north of the border, Canadian Open in Ontario and Toronto, just outside of Toronto. And then that one, Waste Management, about 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a unique experience. I think the players liked it as well. It is what you're talking about, the adrenaline rush. I mean, when you make that big putt, right, you're going to hear that cheer. And you want to have, obviously, a great tee shot on 16. Do you think that, I mean, it's got like a bit of a Happy Gilmore feel to it, right? Like what's happening here? Like beach balls are, on the green and things like that. Do you think that more tournaments will kind of be like that? Or is this just like the one, I mean, you mentioned Ryder Cup, but like, obviously we're never going to see that in the Masters and other tournaments, but could you see in the future, maybe other tournaments kind of taking shape like this one here?
I think it would be really tough to do because I think that like one of the beauties about this event is that it happened so organically and naturally and just, that just became the thing at the 16th hole. Whereas for any other tournament to try and recreate it, I think it would be received as like very disingenuous and just inorganic, and they're just trying to force something on everybody. And so I don't think that we'll see it elsewhere, but if we did, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it.
It's a pretty good field. We'll say that. Let's get into the top of the board here. You got some picks for us. You get some DFS stuff as well. Of course, Rom, he's always going to be at the top when he's playing and he's active here at 6-1. Justin Thomas, HIDEKI. You got the Hove at 16-1. Cantlay at 16-1, who was hanging around last week on Sunday, as was Spieth. Kind of choked that away. I'd love to get your thoughts on him shooting next to the cliff. I'd like to see you in his shoes taking that shot as well. He seemed to be a little taken back by it afterwards. He's like, wow, I can't believe I actually did that. And my caddy said, next time I'm just going to throw the ball over the edge, so you can't take that shot. You got Xander in here, Scotty, Berger, and Henley as well. What do you make of this board? And please walk me through Spieth taking that shot. A cliffhanger for sure.
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing about that shot was the way that he started falling back before impact. Because like obviously it's in the golf swing, like at impact, your weight should be going forward. It should be going to your front side. And so it honestly, like, it was one of the more impressive displays of athleticism that you'll see on the PGA Tour, and I think it's a reminder of just like how athletic this generation of golfer really is. Because, you know, it's one thing to hear about how, oh yeah, this guy was a professional, I forget what Seamus Power, what sport it was that he was playing. They were talking about last week. Or you get guys who played basketball in college, things like that, and you hear about it, but it's harder to see. And because all of these guys are so athletic and they're all creating so much speed in the golf swing, it's hard to see like just how athletic this generation is versus other generations. And also, like, just like when you're watching the NFL or NBA on TV and you don't notice just how big they are because they're all big, like, it's the same sort of effect. And I just think it was cool that, you know, I'm a golfer, and I think that it's cool when I can say, hey, see, golfers really are that athletic.
Yes.
It's not just like something we say.
He like ran back after he shot that as well,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was a heck of a shot, right? I thought it was a great shot.
Well, yeah, that was because he had to get his weight going backwards so much in his swing so that he wouldn't fall over the cliff.
I was watching it live. I thought it was fantastic. Just immediately text the old man, like, did you see Speed? He's like, yeah, I saw Speed. I wouldn't have been taking that shot. That's for sure. Then he said, oh, I'll club down tomorrow. And he did. What do you make of that board? Anyone that piques your interest at that board? And we'll dig a little bit deeper in a bit.
You know, I feel like this is something we've seen a lot so far this year, which is in these better fields, I just have no interest in going to the top of the board. It's almost like with Rahm, for example, at 6-1. I don't feel like he deserves to be 6. And if he is 6, then we should be getting a discount on everybody else if he really is taking that much win equity. And we're not seeing that either. And so I feel like one of those two things has to be true. Either Rahm is just significantly overpriced at that number, or everybody else deserves to have a higher number because he's taking so much win equity. So I'm just basically like ignoring top of boards right now, especially when he's in the field. So all my guys are 30 or above.
And you do have something in there for Henley, right? I mean, you got him at a better price than what we just showed you. You got him at 41-1 from FanDuel, a pick that you put in on Tuesday. And again, if you are part of the betting package, you see the picks from everybody over at FTN. You follow FTN alerts, you get notified. You have the betting package, you're inside the Discord, you're asking questions, you're answering questions, everyone's asking. It's a great conversation, but Henley has moved a little bit. That's the perk of following that account. You get notified right away when that bet is made. Do you still like him at 30-1? I mean, you like the guy to win, but I mean, obviously not the same value.
No, I don't think I do like him at 30. You know, I mean, that's a pretty massive difference, really, 41 to 30.
For sure.
And I do think there are still better numbers available at other books. I don't know if 41 is still available anywhere. But that's a really, really big difference. And again, like, I think one of the keys to the Hoagie win last week was looking at his volatility. Henley is very, very similar to Hoagie in that sense. And for their price, they are fairly volatile. But if you compare them to other guys around 30, now they're a little bit less standing out or popping, if you will, in terms of volatility. I do still think that he would project fairly well. That seems like a much fairer number for him, and I don't want to bet fair numbers. I want to bet numbers that are heavily in my favor.
I will say this, using our prop shop, I still see 41-1 over at FanDuel, so that's great. You like that price. Yeah, DraftKings has him at 30-1. Most spots right around 40, but FanDuel does have him 41. Tino, let's dig a little bit deeper into some other guys here. Sam Burns, Eminem, Tony Finau in here. You got Webb Simpson, Bubba Watson at 40-1 as well. Gooch, just taking shots at Koepka and the blonde here and there. You know, what do you make of this list? Varner, man, a heck of a putt last week as well, right? To win the tournament. I thought that was fantastic. Good for Varner. And then Corey Connors to round it out. Let's talk to me here about this tier.
Yeah, the first one to talk about is Sam Burns. I would bet him at this number 30. I got him at 34, also on FanDuel. And I think it's sort of a perfect comparison with Henley. He projects a little bit better for me than Henley, and he's slightly more volatile. And I think that the other thing that we see between them is sort of new this week. I've started to do this birdie rate over expected analysis, and that sort of is similar to volatility. Like, I think on average, somebody who is more volatile, like Jordan Spieth, like Sam Burns, is going to have a higher birdie rate than expected, and that's what we see with Burns. Henley, though, sort of breaks that pattern. Like I just said, he's been historically about just a little bit less volatile than Burns, but his birdie rate over expected is very negative, while Burns is very positive. And so I think that's just yet another reason to say, you know what, Burns probably has the better ceiling, and so I'm comfortable with 30 for Burns. Love 34 for him. And then the other guy on this list is Talor Gooch for me. Now I got him at 66, which I think is a phenomenal number. 50 is probably close to fair, but I do think I still like him there. Of all the guys we've talked about so far, Gooch is actually the most volatile, and he does project a little bit worse than both Henley and Burns. But the added volatility and the significantly better price, I think 50 is about as low as I would go while still confidently doing it. But if you can still get 66, I think that's probably my favorite bet of the week.
BetMGM 66. Yeah, most spots. I mean, PointsBet 55, Caesars 55, DK there at 50, and FanDuel 50 as well. You see the list here, a couple DFS plays. Do you want to touch on one of the? I mean, last week we saw Hoagie. I mean, the first one on the PGA Tour at over 200 tries, and Luke List the week before that, same sort of deal here, and he seems to be on your radar DFS wise.
Yeah, so I can't talk about these plays without talking about the volatility analysis that I've been doing. And so for anyone who hasn't heard this yet, Matt Jones' volatility report is fantastic. And last week he made the point that he really likes pairing high volatility players with low volatility players and getting a nice balance between the two. And I took that a step further last week by saying, not only do I want to balance high volatility plays with low volatility plays, but ideally I want to find low volatility chalk to pair with high volatility contrarian guys. And this week it's sort of tough to find that. Like looking through my ownership projections, one thing that I'm seeing a lot of this week is there are a lot of low owned guys who project really well, but they're low volatility. And there are a lot of chalky guys who project really well that are high volatility. And so the pickings to stay within this framework is sort of slim this week. The two guys who stand out from a value perspective who do fit this are Luke List and Keith Mitchell. Two guys who I'm not sure I would have guessed that they were low volatility, but they actually are. And both project quite well. Both are going to be fairly chalky in those mid 7Ks. So I really like List and Keith Mitchell as foundational plays. And I think certainly in MME, like I'm still going to be very overweight on guys who project well and are chalky, but are highly volatile, like an Aaron Wise, I think is the perfect example of that. Talor Gooch, another guy who fits that mold. But for single entries, like I really want to concentrate on staying within this framework for my value guys. So Luke List and Keith Mitchell, I think are going to be there. And then, man, it's just really hard to argue with what Viktor Hovland is doing. Highly volatile guy. So the ceiling is absolutely there. He projects third best in the field, only behind Rahm and Cantlay for me. And a lot of that is because this week's course fit model is heavy on driving. It's lower than usual on around the green. And that's Hovland to a T. Like he's outstanding off the tee. Iron play still matters this week. He's outstanding with his irons, and his only weakness, which is a really, really big weakness, is around the green, and that doesn't matter as much. So basically, like all signs just point to Hovland for me this week. And considering the fact that he is $1,400 discount to Jon Rahm, $500 to Cantlay, and $800 to Thomas, I think I'm going to be paying down to Hovland quite a bit.
Oh man, I love it. So much good information there, Alex. Again, you just, for some people that are hanging out here new on the show, I've seen a couple. Just the PGA package is phenomenal, man. I'm not just saying this. FTNDaily.com/pricing. If you just want to sign up for the month, $24.99 for the month. You're gonna have 4 tournaments here to kind of hang out. hopefully you cash, you have some success DFS or, betting wise, and then you hang out those for the rest of the year. But you talk about the volatility report. We got player projections from Kyle Murray. We got DFS ownership projections for DraftKings, including PGA Showdown ownership projections. You got the PGA course model. And that's just a few things, right? You got the exposures, the cheat sheets, the Discord channel, value plays, lots of articles, a lot of great content in there as well. We have to get out. We only have a minute. I'll get you out on this. Ben Simmons, traded? Yes or no? Is this guy going to get shipped here before the deadline?
It's starting to seem that way.
It is, isn't it?
I was just talking on Twitter with Stefano, who is a big Nets fan, and he was saying, just get it over with. Just send Simmons, Curry, and a pick for Harden. And I came back with, I don't know if Embiid wants Curry to be a part of the deal. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that, like, if the sort of pivot point for whether or not this trade happens is Seth Curry's inclusion in it, I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens.
Yeah, it does seem like maybe an off-season move. I know Tino running the show is a big Nets guy as well. And so I think he's kind of accepted that it could potentially happen. Alex, appreciate you, dude. Alex Blickle, 1 on the Twitter machine. Check out Fade the Narrative over at FTN this evening. Joe Pisapia is in here next. We're going to switch gears and talk a little football. Keep her locked.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, my guy, Mr. Black Book, Joe Pisapia, 17, checking in here on Mean Streets, here on Game Plus Network. We appreciate Joe. Quite the resume, right? The host at FantasyPros, you're doing some betting stuff over there, TV host at Sports Grid, host of In This Ring, but also the author of the Fantasy Black Book series, which you can catch on Amazon. How are you, man? Thanks for the time, dude.
I'm doing very well, my friend. It's always a pleasure to see your face. And yes. I've got to host all those shows because it's the only chance I get in my own house to talk. So that's really where this whole career stemmed from. That's about it. That's it. This is my one shot at it. That's why I'm so happy you invited me. I get one more small opportunity to just talk, once in a while. But that's great, man. I'm so excited about the game. How about you?
Yeah, I am as well. We got Andrew Reed hanging out here. He's a big Pisapia fan from the old daily delivery days over at
Likewise,
FTN.
I am also a big fan of his.
How could you not be, right? How could you not be? No, just super jazzed, man, to catch up with you. I know that you're really, really busy, and just the football season is coming to an end here. So I just, you've been on the show a couple times throughout the season, talking about the highs and the lows and some surprises. And I believe we touched on the Bengals maybe midway through the season, just that rise in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow and company. Man, what do you make of this matchup? I think it's a pretty good one we got going.
Well, I'm not surprised that the Bengals are there. Joe Burrow is a winning quarterback. Joe Burrow has that leadership quality, those intangible things a quarterback that there's some other really talented quarterbacks that just don't have that. And it's something that guys want to play with him, guys want to play for him. And I think that is a huge difference maker. When you saw it at LSU, it was not a fluke. And there were some people that thought it might be. But you even saw before he got hurt, he was really starting to figure it out before that big ACL injury. And he came back this year, and as the season went on and they got more and more comfortable, you could see this team really starting to gel, and the defense has played very well also. I mean, they have been opportunistic, certainly. The one Achilles heel, though, is the thing that scares me the most for their safety, especially Joe Burrow, which is the offensive line. That is the big problem. We saw it in the Tennessee game. We've seen it all year. A lot of people thought they should have addressed it in the draft. Instead, they took Jamar Chase, which I don't think anyone's arguing with. But right now, I mean, that is a real question mark. When you have a pass rush that has Von Miller and you have Aaron Donald up front, it's going to be a lot of work to stop those guys on a really good offensive line. So that's going to be the challenge for Joe Burrow. But if anybody's up to the task, it's got to be Joey B, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It's crazy what he's done in 2 years, isn't it? I mean, they had the first overall pick a couple years ago, 4-win squad. Yeah. And then to get to the Super Bowl and looking to become the first player to win the Heisman, to win national championship, and to win a Super Bowl, and he's doing this in year 2. I brought this up yesterday on the show with Jennifer Piacenti, just like how Jamar Chase was mic'd up and how excited he was. Man, I can't believe it. We're in the Super Bowl in year 1. And he's talking to Burrow, and Burrow's just like straight business, man. The dude's not even cracking a smile, didn't even look like he was looking his way, just completely ignoring just like with the task on hand here. So you mentioned a couple things that Cincinnati has to do. What do you think about the Rams? Like this is a team that's been all in, Joe, over the past couple of years. They've traded multiple first-round picks. They have a loaded roster here, a ton of just first-round picks on their squad, and Matthew Stafford here, 2 former number 1 overall quarterbacks. We've seen the Rams look unbelievable at times, and then all of a sudden go through like little moments where they make massive mistakes and let teams back in. What do you think is the game plan for Los Angeles here?
Well, I think the Rams have a lot of pressure on them. I think it's a much better scenario for them that they went to that game a few years ago, some of them, especially Sean McVay, and failed. Interesting, of course, Zach Taylor also on that same staff during that time. So probably good that they had that exposure to the Super Bowl, because I think it can be very daunting at times. You know, it's a lot going on, a lot of media, a lot of hype, a lot of press, a lot of stuff. And it's hard to really get your game plan across. But Stafford's got a lot of pressure on him as well. I mean, he's been waiting his whole career for this moment, and this is it. And you never know if you're going to get back there. So there's a lot of positives there, sleeping in your own bed, not having to worry about, the family travel and all that stuff going on. There's a lot of positives there for the Rams. But I think the negative for them is all the pressure is on them. They are the most talented team in football, most likely, in terms of roster when you look up and down. But as you mentioned, this is their window. They are kind of in a moment here where if they don't win, well, what do you do with the Rams? You probably have no choice but to run it back next year. But without as many draft picks they have, with the cap issues they're going to have, this roster could get very ugly very quickly if they don't win this game. So I think the Rams are up for the task. I really do. I think the Rams are going to win this football game. But I think the Bengals are going to make it interesting. And look, as somebody right now who has money on the Bengals from 2 weeks ago when they were plus 850 to win the Super Bowl, I thought that was the best bet on the board. You got a 1 in 4 chance at plus 850, you take it. So
Yeah.
my heart says Bengals, but my head says Rams. So that's where I kind of land with this game right now.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I mean, no surprise. I think the Rams win this football game as well, but we've been talking a lot about the Bengals on this show from, I don't know, even still, the moment that they went in and they had that big win in Baltimore where they just crushed the Ravens, and then all of a sudden they lost to the Jets, and then they got spanked by Cleveland. I'm like, I still feel this team. I still like them. And then they were able to bounce back, beat Kansas City in the regular season, and beat them again. I think that the game does stay close. We got a 4.5 spread. The total has dropped down to 48.5. It opened up at 50.5. I'm on Cincinnati plus 4.5, but I'm hedging as well, right? As a guy who has a Rams future, I'm kind of like just in the middle here where I think the Rams win. And I think if people have LA futures, then you could take Cincinnati on, the point spread with the 4.5 points and maybe just get the best of both worlds, I'll say, clearly, easily. But man, what if you were to pick an MVP in this game? I know Kupp is like, you got Kupp at 6-1 and Stafford, it's usually a quarterback. But man, if they dial up all the pressure that they can, and we know that they can, it really could be a defensive player like Donald.
It could, but it's typically a quarterback award. It is really few and far between. And I think the narrative that's built here for Matthew Stafford to, toil away for a decade in Detroit and now have this opportunity, I think that's a really tough narrative to crack. Cooper Kupp would certainly be the next guy in line there. And it just kind of feels like, when you match these two teams up, if you look regular season, they're very similar in terms of where they ranked in offense and defense. They were, not that far off, a few wins off in terms of, where they were in the standings. But at the end of the day, you look at the roster talent and, you got 10 players that have been to the Super Bowl before. So that's enough guys where you kind of have an expectation of what you're going to be. But it just feels to me like this is that Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp moment where they finally started to click on all cylinders at the right time, and they hadn't. And I think you and I would agree that they came out flat for a lot of games in the middle of the season. They did not make adjustments in the second half very well. So the Rams have played their best football in the first 2 weeks of the season or 3 weeks of the season, and now these last 3 weeks of the season. So to me, they're peaking at the right time. But it only takes that one weird, wacky moment to shift the momentum for a Joe Burrow, which is why you can't count out a guy like that, because he has no quit in him, which you got to love. You just absolutely love that guy, and it just speaks to how important it is to have the quarterback. You said this is a team that had the first overall pick 2 years ago, and now they're in the Super Bowl. If you get the quarterback position right, then you're on the right path in the NFL, period, end of story.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the way that he's turned that franchise around, and they were able to obviously sign some guys this past season to, bolster the defense a little bit. They certainly get some pressure as well. I don't think enough people talk, Joe, about their defense. I mean, it's pretty good. It's not a pushover defense. I mean, they can hang. I think they're going to be able to make some plays too. I mean, we saw Patrick Mahomes in the second half. It's not just Mahomes, guys. Like, that's all I want to talk about is Mahomes. He just gave the game away. Well, we saw 2 second halves this year from Mahomes against Cincinnati where they struggled as well. But you're right. The Rams, they've traded 6 first-round picks since 2018. They don't have one until 2024. The window to win is right now. I've never really seen a team do this and pull it off. I've seen teams try this, but they haven't been able to pull it off. It's tough to really kind of to finish the job. We only have a couple minutes left. I have to ask you about baseball. I get a couple people here. Our guy George, he's saying, Joe, lots have the Red Sox projected 3rd and 4th in the AL East. Really? Really? He says he doesn't like that. George, I'll say this. I think a lot of people had the Red Sox pegged for 3rd or 4th last season as well, and they had a bit of a surprise year. I don't know if you want to touch on the Red Sox since you are wearing the New England. I know you're not a Boston guy there, but you are wearing the Pats logo. But you're covering baseball. You've been covering it for a while. The book is out. Check it out. It's fantastic. It's always fantastic. You do some amazing work. But is there a player that you've started to talk about a little bit more recently in some of your research as we get closer to baseball season?
Well, to answer George's question, it's all about the health of Chris Sale. If Chris Sale is healthy at the top of that rotation, then absolutely they can compete. They were a huge surprise last year. I did not like the Hunter Renfroe trade, though. I thought that was very peculiar. But they've got a lot of talent still on that roster regardless. I thought that was just a weird move. But yeah, I think the early going, that guy I keep looking at, the pitching market, I'm really afraid of a lot of the guys at the top. DeGrom, I'm just not confident in. Max Scherzer's another year older, and New York is an adjustment if they do get to there eventually and play. So I'm looking at that secondary pitching market and guys like Freddie Peralta, who I know last year dazzled. A lot of people will say, well, what about the innings? What about the innings? If you had that same kind of fear, then you didn't buy into Brandon Woodruff 2 years ago or Corbin Burns last year, and you missed out. So I'm just urging everybody, just take the good innings that you're going to get and hope that he can give you more of them, because this time last year, all we kept talking about was, wow, can Corbin Burns, go 180 innings or whatever that might be? Well, guess what? One Cy Young Award later, there he is. I think Freddie Peralta is that next guy in Milwaukee. So that's a player I'm very much in on, obviously. And I think also when you're just looking at, the market for pitching, that secondary grouping, the Giolitos, the guys like Freddie Peralta, the Max Frieds of the world, you could do pretty well in the fantasy market with those guys and not have to spend an early draft capital on one of those top 5 starters, because I do believe those top offensive guys in the first 3 rounds are too good to pass up on.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I wish we could chat more. I really do. Yes or no? In on Mike Trout this year? Yes or no?
Yes. In fact, we did a mock draft yesterday on the Draft Wizard when we had a little draft special. And he went all the way in the second round, early second round. Could you believe it? Mike Trout in the second round. Sign me up anytime. I'm on that.
The guys did a draft the other day, too. I saw Vlad tweeted out 25th overall, Mike Trout. It's like, okay, all right, I'll just take it. He's not going to give you any stolen bases, but the upside is crazy. You're going to get a potential first-round pick in the second round. Joe, you're a fantastic dude. I appreciate it. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Let's catch up again soon, man. Cheers.
Always good to talk to you, buddy.
Tino's in here next. Keep her locked. Welcome back in. Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network as we bring in Tino Rodriguez _ on the Twitter machine. I'm seeing a baseball conversation happen. Futures, something Tino, you and I will get into when we get closer to the baseball season. I do see the Red Sox at 20-1 to win the World Series. I just don't think they have the chucking. You and I are going to talk a little NBA. There's 6 games in the association. Something we said yesterday, as we always say when we talk about the NBA. You can't lock any bets in this, or you can't lock them in early, right? We were on the Kings, and then when we finished the show, they made a ridiculous trade yet again. We may have to have a show just dedicated to the nonsense that happens in Sacramento. My goodness. But here we are, 6 games. What are you thinking? And I really need to know if you're thinking that James Harden is traded at the end of tomorrow.
I think it's inevitable, but at the same time, I don't think Seth Curry is the big piece. I think it's Tyrese Maxey that the Sixers should be reluctant to give up. And if you're a Nets fan, I know that's the rumored trade or the rumored offer that the Nets did put out. I think they're going to see if the Sixers will overpay for it. And if they want to overpay for James Harden, similar to what the Nets did, go ahead. The Nets just proved that didn't work out at all. So go ahead if you want to go next. Also, I appreciate Joe Pisapia's talking about Scherzer and DeGrom's health issues. They played for the Mets, so naturally, now that Scherzer especially plays for the Mets, you're going to be hesitant on ever drafting him because anyone on the Mets is going to be an injury concern. We have 3 We have 3 games that I like today. We're going to roll with good teams. We were on the Suns on the road against the Sixers yesterday. I want to consider yesterday a push because although we took the Kings and Jokic didn't get his triple-double, he fell a couple assists short. You know, we were on the Suns, and the mantra we've had on this show for every NBA slate, even though it's really don't bet these games until, tip-off is way closer and all the dust settles with the trades and injuries, it's that we're going to bet good teams when we can get value on them. And a good team we're getting today is the Bulls. The Bulls handled the Hornets the last time these teams played. Not much has changed since. They won by 14 points the last time. We're getting them -1.5 on the road here. The Hornets have lost 5 in a row, although the Bulls have lost 2 in a row in 3 of the last 5. They're just great. I mean, I think we can bet them. They might be my Rupe hints, right? How many times can I bet them? and I'm not gonna overthink it, man. We've made so much money on them. It just makes so much sense for me to stay riding with them. I think them being on the road would be the only hiccup, but I'm not going to overthink it. We're getting near even money, probably towards, tip off. I think the Hornets might get some money coming in on them because the Hornets are too good to keep losing the way they are, especially at home. But I will take the Bulls today, mainly because Vucevic went off. He dropped the 30 spot against them the last time they played. I think he'll be the answer this time around. Then I'm going to take plus money on the Warriors here, also on the road. The real reason I think that they're dogs because they've beaten and handled really the Jazz the last two times they played. The last time they played, they were at home and only won by 2, but the time before that, they kind of controlled in Utah, and that's where they'll be tonight. This is an ESPN primetime game. Like I said yesterday, if we can get a really good team, one of the best teams in the NBA, and plus money, we're going to take it every time and turn out to be on the right side of things more often than not. We were with the Suns. Let's stay riding with it, see if we can go 2-0 on that thought. If you want to get +2, I actually don't really mind getting those points today just because I could see this going neck and neck, but still no Rudy Gobert, so it would have to take a huge effort from Donovan Mitchell to outduel Steph Curry, who almost had a triple-double the last time out for the Golden State Warriors. No Klay Thompson today, though, it seems. So it's not like he really moved the needle, but I do like the Warriors on the road as dogs. And then we're going to go back home, and we're finally going to profit on a team we profited on a lot this season, and we're going to take the Cleveland Cavaliers at home. Although they don't have Karis LeVert yet, Darius Garland could be back today. We don't know 100%, so watch out for that. But they're great at home. The Spurs, not good on the road, 9-16. Spread's too low. Under 6, I really like this number. Cavs have been one of the best teams against the spread, one of only, I think, a handful of teams with 30-plus wins. Spurs have been no walk in the park either, but the Cavs were able to win by 5 in San Antonio the last time these teams played. I like the Cavs today. It's a big number, but I think I'll lay it because the Cavs at home have been really, really good against the spread this season. So
I like the 5.5 too, right? And maybe you just chuck them into a parlay, maybe with the Bulls and away you go. I think it's a pretty good parlay. Dude, appreciate you. Stick around. We're going to talk a little bit more NBA in the final segment. Just tee up something pretty cool that we're doing at FTN. In the next block, guess what? We're going to talk Rupe hints. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in. We have 6 games on the ice tonight. Let's start here with a couple of shot props. The shot props were really good yesterday, and the picks were brutal. I'll be honest. I mean, I owe you guys a little bit when it comes to the picks. We just got let down by the Wild and Carolina. But from a shot prop standpoint yesterday, I know I only gave 3 shot props and a bonus. I think 3 of the 4 hit. The bonus didn't hit. I believe we have Connor in there who didn't hit for us. But in the bet tracker, we had Pasta, Toffoli, Bratt, Aho, Kopp, Bouchard at plus money. We had a parlay with Russ and Aho and Kane and Toffoli. The two that we didn't hit was Max Pacioretty and Kyle Connor. So hopefully we can continue this success. I wanted to lead here with shot props because it has been very successful for us. 50 plus units over in the FTN bet tracker. And if you have the FTN betting package, then you get the golf picks, you get the NBA picks. I think our guy Jeff Ratcliffe won 15 units yesterday in the association. So it's all happening over at ftnbets.com. I am leading with some usual suspects, but I think until books adjust, we just continue to hammer it, right? Rupe Hintz, our guy. Evander Kane is cleared in all 4 games with the Edmonton Oilers. And then Dylan Larkin here at 2.5 shots. You could put all 3 of these guys in a parlay over at Bet365 at plus 270. Hintz is cleared 2.5 shots in 8 of his past 11 games. And at home, he's been even better. He's averaging 3.2 shots per game at home over 21 games. He has 14 goals and 24 points over that span. I mentioned Evander Kane. He cleared yesterday. He's cleared in all 4 games, and he played a season high last night in that game against Vegas. 19-16 he played. 5 shots, 3, 3, and 3 in his 4 games. And then I have, it's a pretty good spot, too, against Chicago. I'll say this. They've allowed the 6th most shot attempts at 5 and 5 per 60 over the last 6 weeks, according to Natural Stat Trick. And as for Larkin, a matchup here against Philadelphia ranks inside the top 10 in shot attempts and shots allowed at 5 and 5 per 60 as well. Larkin, 17 shots in his last 4 games. He's cleared in 3 of the 4. He had 0 in his last game, but he had 7, 5, and 5 in the 3 games prior to that. So I like these 3. You see the bonus in there and Alex DeBrincat. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go in that game with Chicago and Edmonton. I think Leon Draisaitl's in play. Evan Bouchard, if we can get him plus money again, over 2.5 shots. I think Patrick Kane at plus money is 3.5 as well. But, you're just going to have to take those guys as single. I think the safest guy in that game is Evander Kane. And you know what? Last year when he was with the Sharks, he was a 3.5 guy. We're getting 2.5, and it's probably the last time we're going to get 2.5 unless he maybe doesn't clear tonight. Then books will allow us to get 2.5 again. But it is changing. Things are changing pretty soon. Let's switch over to some picks here for tonight. I like the Dallas Stars at home against Nashville. The Predators have been really good, but I like this Dallas team at home. They're 15-6-1 on home ice. They've won 10 of their last 16 games, and they are 6-3 in their last 9 games on home ice as well. The Vegas Golden Knights played last night. An easy win for them against the Edmonton Oilers. We're going to get Robin Lehner in net for the Golden Knights tonight. It's a tough matchup in Calgary against the Flames, but like Tino said, with the Golden State Warriors, when we can get a good team plus money, I'm always going to do it. I love this Golden Knights squad. They're fully healthy right now, and Robin Lehner has played a lot better over his last few games. It was hard on him at the start of the season, but he has been pretty good. And then I'm taking the Islanders on the road against the Vancouver Canucks, who played last night at home. No Thatcher Demko in between the pipes for the Canucks. I like the under in that game. I like the under in Arizona, Seattle. Both of those games, both Arizona, Seattle, and the over Chicago, Edmonton as singles are plus money. You can take that as singles if you want to, or you can include all 3 of them together and get plus 575. So that's it for the NHL. One more segment. I want to tee up a couple cool things that we're doing here over the next 3 or 4 days over at FTN. So hang on, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll talk trade deadline here next. Keep it locked. Welcome back in, guys. So a couple cool things we're doing here over the next little bit. Tino, let's start with the NBA trade deadline show, which is going to happen tomorrow at 2 Eastern. And look at this, an NBA top shot giveaway in the show. Apparently, with every guy that just gets traded here, they're going to have a giveaway. So something to keep an eye on to see a lot of people. When is Dame going to get traded? When is he going to get traded? It seems like it's inevitable, but it's probably not going to happen tomorrow. I'd love to see him with the Mavericks, right? Selfishly, come on, go play with Luka. Go get it done. Something else that we're doing here on Friday after Mean Streets is the big game show. We are going to talk for about an hour. We're going to bring in Matthew Friedman. He's going to share his favorite side and total. Jeff Ratcliffe, the prop king, is going to have some props for us. Joe Gallant's going to stop by. He's got some touchdown props for us. I will be co-hosting with Jeff Ratcliffe. I'm going to talk some same game parlay stuff as well. 2:30 Eastern on Friday, the big game super show presented by FTN Network. As well on Sunday, the Touchdown Town big game edition Sunday at 1 as well. So a lot of coverage. If you are subscribed to our FTN YouTube page, you will have access to all of those shows. I'm out of here. Good luck tonight with your picks, and we'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.